Have you ever felt a chill crawl up your spine for no apparent reason? Our first tale of terror takes us to a place that most would prefer to forget, a place that seems to have been forgotten by time itself. An old, abandoned house, standing alone, its windows like hollow eyes staring blankly into the void. But for one unsuspecting family, this house was to become their home, their sanctuary. Or so they thought. The family, brimming with hope and dreams of a fresh start, moved in, oblivious to the eerie silence that hung around the place. The house, on the other hand, seemed to have a life of its own. Noises echoed through its empty halls in the still of the night, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. The family dismissed them as mere products of an overactive imagination, but the sounds persisted, growing louder with each passing night. Then, objects began to disappear. Items placed in one room would inexplicably find their way to another. Doors would creak open of their own volition. Lights would flicker and then plunge the house into darkness. The family tried to rationalize these strange occurrences, attributing them to the house's old age or faulty wiring, but deep down, they knew something was off, something they couldn't quite put their finger on. Have you ever heard whispers in the dark when you knew you were all alone? Our second tale embarks on the chilling journey of a teenager, who, in the stillness of solitude, began to hear the faintest whispers. At first, they were indistinct, like the rustling of leaves, the soft murmur of a distant conversation. They were easy to dismiss, to attribute to the overactive imagination of a youthful mind. But as the days turned into weeks, these whispers grew in intensity. They became clearer, more articulate, like an invisible chorus whispering directly into his ear. The whispers were not random, oh no, they carried a purpose, a message. They began revealing secrets, dark, hidden secrets, about the people around him. Secrets that lay buried under layers of normalcy, secrets that were meant to be concealed, were now being whispered into his ear. His best friend's stolen kiss, the neighbor's midnight rendezvous, the teacher's hidden stash, the mailman's secret second family. The whispers spared no one, revealing the hidden shadows of human nature, the unspoken truths that lurked beneath the surface. The teenager, overwhelmed and terrified, found himself trapped in a world of whispered revelations. He became a silent witness to the darkness that hides within the hearts of those around him. The whispers became his constant companions, his unwanted confidants, his relentless tormentors. And then one day, the whispers stopped. The voices that had been his unnerving companions disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared. The silence that followed was deafening. It echoed through the emptiness, filling the void left by the whispers. The teenager found himself longing for the whispers to return, for the silence was far more terrifying. In the absence of the whispers, he was left with the haunting knowledge of the hidden secrets and the chilling silence. The whispers had stopped, but the secrets they revealed remained, casting long dark shadows that would forever haunt his memory. Then, one day, the whispers stopped, but the silence was even more terrifying. Have you ever been haunted by something from your past? Our third tale unfolds around a woman tormented not by spectral entities or shadowy figures, but by a past that refuses to stay buried. A past that clings onto her present as if a specter unwilling to cross over to the other side. In this tale of terrifying recall, the woman had suffered a heartbreaking loss, a tragedy that left a void in her life. An accident, cruel and sudden, had claimed a loved one, leaving her with nothing but memories and a gnawing sense of guilt. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, she found herself besieged by apparitions, not of monstrous creatures from the netherworld, but of the loved one she'd lost. A haunting reminder of happier times, a spectral echo of a life that was no more. She would see them everywhere, in the solitary quiet of her home, in the bustling crowd of the city streets, even in her dreams. It was as if the past had broken through the barriers of time to torment her in the present. In a desperate attempt to escape the relentless hauntings, she moved. New city, new home, new life. But the past, like a relentless specter, refused to be left behind. The apparitions followed her, growing more intense, more vivid, more terrifying. She could hear their voice, feel their touch, sense their presence. It was as if her past had taken a life of its own, a life that was feeding off her guilt, her regret, her sorrow. With every passing day, the line between the past and the present blurred, between the real and the unreal, until she was living in a perpetual state of haunting. A haunting not by the supernatural, but by her own past. In the end, she realized the chilling truth. She wasn't running from the apparitions. She was running from her guilt, her regrets, her past. She realized that she was not running from the apparition but from the guilt of her past. Have you ever discovered a truth so terrifying that it made your blood run cold? Let's take a chilling journey back through the stories we've just heard and unearth the horrifying truths that lurk within. In our first tale, The Unseen Terror, we met a family who believed they were alone in their new home, but they were mistaken. The peculiar noises, the mysterious shadows, the inexplicable cold spots, these were not random occurrences. These were the signs of an unseen entity living among them. An entity that was not at peace. This family was not alone. They were sharing their home with a restless spirit, a terrifying truth they discovered when it was already too late. Moving on to the whispering shadows, where a teenager thought he was merely suffering from an overactive imagination. But the whispers he heard were not just in his head. They were real, coming from the shadows that surrounded him. These whispers were the voices of the lost souls, trapped in the darkness, reaching out to him. The terrifying truth was that he had an uncanny ability to hear the voices of the departed, a gift, or perhaps a curse that he would have to live with forever. Finally, we return to the haunting past. The woman who believed her past was tormenting her was indeed correct. The nightmares, the visions, the eerie feeling of being watched, it wasn't her mind playing tricks on her. She was being haunted by the specter of her past, a terrifying truth that would forever alter her reality. Each of these stories unravels a terrifying truth, a dark secret that once revealed changes everything. The unseen entity, the whispering shadows, the haunting past, these were not figments of the imagination. They were real, tangible, and horrifyingly present. And just like that, their worst fears had become their reality. Have you ever learned a lesson from your fears? In the darkest corners of our experiences, we often find the most profound lessons. Each of our characters in these stories learned something vital from the horrors they faced. The family, haunted by the unseen terror, discovered the importance of trusting their instincts. They learned that sometimes the most real things are those we can't see, but can only feel. The teenager, plagued by whispering shadows, learned to confront his fears head-on. He discovered that the whispers of fear lose their power when stared down by courage. The woman, tormented by her haunting past, learned the value of confronting what has been long buried. She realized that the past can be a ghost, haunting us until we face it and let it rest. In the end, they all understood that they had to face their fears to overcome them. But what about you? Have you ever faced your fears? This question might seem daunting, but it's a crucial one to consider. Each of the stories we've explored today revolves around fear, a primal emotion that can paralyze us, hold us captive, and even manipulate our perceptions of reality. Just like the characters in our tales, we all have our personal demons. They may not be as grotesque as the unseen terror, or as whispery as the shadows. And they might not come from a haunting past, but they exist nonetheless. They lurk in the corners of our minds, waiting for the right moment to strike, to fill us with dread, to make us question our sanity. Yet, as our stories have shown, there's a certain power that comes from facing these fears. The characters didn't let their terror consume them. They didn't cower in the face of the unknown or let their pasts dictate their futures. Instead, they confronted their fears. They faced the terrifying truth, and in doing so, they found a way to overcome. They found strength in their vulnerability, courage in their trepidation. Facing our fears is not about eradicating them, but about understanding them, about coming to terms with them. It's about recognizing that fear, as potent as it might be, is just an emotion. And like any emotion, it can be controlled, managed, even harnessed for our benefit. The lessons we've learned from these stories are not just about the thrill of the scare, but about the triumph over fear. They serve as reminders of our resilience, of our capacity to confront the things that scare us the most and come out the other side stronger, braver. So I invite you to follow in the footsteps of our characters. Look your fears in the eye, understand them, conquer them. Remember, the only way to conquer fear is to face it. So what are you waiting for?